everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel. It means everything.
Welcome to Novels Wonderland, Naruto, Infinite Reincarnation. Chapter 89 to 91, Chapter 89, Resolution. 1855 words. Chapter 89, Resolution. The Ein Seal was a technique that allowed one to store chakra refined in ordinary times and release it all at once when needed. Its principles combined both medical ninjutsu and the Uzumaki clan's sealing techniques. Kei had personally learned it from Mito, and it had cost him a great deal of effort. But the effect was equally remarkable. The moment the Ein Seal was released, the chakra in Kei's body, which had already been mostly exhausted, instantly surged back to abundance. His power rose with it. With that increase in chakra, even a casual strike now carried several times the force it had before. Ahead, the tailed beast ball was still raging. Kei evaded it with Flying Thunder God, then raised his Sharingan and looked forward. At that moment, his dojutsu was pushed to its limit. As time passed, Kinkaku released even more of the tailed beast chakra, and the number of tails behind him increased again, now reaching 5. With 5 tails, his chakra had become so violent that even with Kei's current dojutsu power, true control was impossible. But influencing him for a brief instant, enough to create an opening, was still possible. Kei stared forward in silence. In the next moment, Kinkaku's body froze, and the pattern of the Sharingan appeared in his crimson eyes. Now, taking advantage of that single moment of paralysis, Kei did not hesitate and immediately formed hand seals. This time, he did not use Raise-Non. Instead, he chose another ninjutsu. Wind release, stream rupture. A terrifying wind blade erupted. Under the enhancement of his massive chakra reserves, the power of the technique was pushed to its absolute limit. That terrifying force struck Kinkaku instantly and blasted his body away. Aya! A miserable howl rang out. Under the terrifying force of the wind release, the tailed beast cloak around Kinkaku was torn apart, and his body itself began to break down. Even with tailed beast chakra supporting him, the damage was so severe that it pushed him to the edge. But even then, he did not die. He still clung stubbornly to life, and the aura around him only became more terrifying. A new tail grew from his back, as if he were about to reach 6 tails. But Kei gave him no chance. The moment Kinkaku crashed to the ground, Kei reached out and slammed one hand downward. For Symbol's seal. Runes spread in all directions, forming a massive sealing array across the ground and trapping the tailed beast transformed Kinkaku within it. You want to seal me? Impossible. Facing the seal, Kinkaku instantly understood what was happening. He roared at Kei in front of him, and the tailed beast chakra in his body erupted violently as he struggled to break free. Stay still for me. Kei's face remained calm as he spoke indifferently. Looking at the still resisting Kinkaku, he gave him no chance at all and pressed his hand down further. The enormous chakra within his body poured into the seal. The power of the Four Symbols seal surged, becoming far stronger in an instant, and the struggling Kinkaku was forcibly suppressed. Finally, amid his unwilling roars, the chakra within his body was sealed by the Four Symbols seal, leaving him with no remaining strength to resist. Activating Flying Thunder God, Kei appeared directly in front of him. Sharingan. With all the chakra in his body sealed away, Kinkaku was now at his weakest. Under the gaze of the Sharingan, his eyes instantly turned vacant, and in the end, he slowly closed them. It's over. Looking at Kinkaku, who had finally been brought under control, Kei let out a long breath, feeling exhausted down to the bone. Even with the chakra support provided by the Ein Seal, his reserves were now nearly drained again. Fortunately, he had ended things in time. If the battle had dragged on any longer, the one who would have collapsed first would absolutely have been him. After all, the other side possessed the enhancement of the 9 Tails chakra. In terms of chakra volume alone, Kinkaku was practically comparable to a tailed beast. By comparison, Kei was still at a major disadvantage. But in the end, it settled. He looked at Kinkaku, now trapped under genjutsu, as well as the Bashozen and the amber purifying pot beside him, and a satisfied look appeared on his face. Though this battle had been extremely difficult, the harvest was not small. Leaving aside the two Six Paths tools, the Bashozen and the amber purifying pot, Kinkaku alone was already a huge gain. Within the entire shinobi world, the Kinkaku brothers were a unique existence. They were not Jinchuriki. And yet, by consuming the flesh and blood within a tailed beast, they had obtained tailed beast chakra, and the ability to directly undergo tailed beast transformation. They were a singular case in the entire world. That seemed to be thanks to their bloodline. In the original story, it had been stated clearly that the two brothers were descendants of the Sage of Six Paths. And compared to the Senju and Uchiha, their bloodline even seemed purer. One must remember that although the Senju clan and Uchiha clan had inherited parts of the sage's body and eyes respectively, their appearances were still the same as ordinary humans. The Kinkaku brothers were different. They had been born with horns on their heads, which was a symbol of the Otsutsuki bloodline. Purely in terms of lineage, there was likely no one in the entire world who could compare to them. Even Hashirama and Madara, if not for being the reincarnations of Azura and Indra's chakra, probably would not compare to those two in terms of bloodline alone. And that was exactly why Kei had personally come all this way to act against them. The karma within his body needed to collect bloodline pieces related to the Otsutsuki as quickly as possible in order to develop and perfect itself. The Kinkaku brothers were perfect materials. If he had not encountered them, that would have been another matter. But since he had come to this era and happened to meet them, there was no way he would let such an opportunity pass. And from the battle just now, their characteristics had also become obvious. The first was their enormous chakra volume. Even excluding the 9 tails chakra within them, their personal chakra reserves were already massive. Unless one was speaking of extreme outliers, even the Uzumaki and Senju, both clans known for huge chakra reserves, could not compare to the two brothers. A vast amount of chakra and terrifying vitality. These were the characteristics of the sage's body. In addition, the two of them also possessed strong resistance to genjutsu, and good resistance to the dojutsu power of the Sharingan. That was likely another trait inherited from the sage's bloodline. I'll study it slowly after I return. The thought flashed through Kei's mind, and then he grabbed Kinkaku and activated Flying Thunder God again, teleporting him away. In the next instant, he reappeared in the distance. A thunderous roar sounded from far away. Looking up, he saw that the third Raikage and Ginkaku were still locked in brutal combat. Compared to Kei's side, the third Raikage's battle was clearly far more direct and savage. His body was monstrously strong. Under the protection of his lightning release armor, he did not fall behind at all even against a tailed beast transformed Ginkaku. He was clashing head-on and even suppressing Ginkaku through raw force. Kei was not surprised by this. In the history of Kyomogakure, the third Raikage was a ruthless monster. He had once fought the 8 tails in a berserk state and suppressed it. Later, he had also battled 10,000 Iwagakure ninja alone, only dying from exhaustion after 3 days and 3 nights. He was a legend in the history of the shinobi world itself. It was not strange at all for him to possess this kind of combat power. The lightning release armor really is impressive. Watching from the side, Kei could not help but nod. Most shinobi in the world had high attack and low defense. No matter how powerful their offensive power was, their actual bodies remained extremely fragile. But among the many shinobi of the world, the third Raikage was an exception. By relying on lightning release chakra mode and lightning release armor, his physical defense had reached an astonishing height. That was what allowed him to stand against tailed beasts head-on. If I get the chance, I may try learning it. The thought came to Kei with genuine interest. To some extent, he shared a hobby with Orochimaru. Both of them were interested in the various techniques that existed throughout the shinobi world. The difference was that Kei only cared about unique techniques. Ordinary ninjutsu, he would at most study the principles behind them, but would not pay them much mind. That was another point where he differed from Orochimaru. After some more time, the battle ahead reached its climax. The strongest spear struck forward. The third Raikage finally completely suppressed Ginkaku. A spear of lightning shot out and pierced directly through the chest of the tailed beast transformed Ginkaku. At that moment, Ginkaku's eyes widened as he looked down at his chest in disbelief. He seemed to want to struggle and do something more. But in the end, there was nothing he could do. Even as a pure-blood descendant of the Sage of Six Paths, he still had no answer to having his heart pierced through. He could only feel the strength in his body gradually fading until, in the end, he died unwillingly. After his death, the tailed beast cloak around him gradually dissipated, and his body returned to its normal state. It seems your side is over too. As the battle came to an end, the third Raikage immediately moved to Ginkaku's body and collected the 3 Six Paths tools he had carried, all while looking at Kei with clear vigilance. From the way he acted, it was obvious he was wary of Kei doing something. It could not be helped. The godlike speed you had shown earlier had left too deep an impression. And for Kumogakure, both Ginkaku's corpse and the 3 Six Paths tools on him were far too important to lose. If Kei were to suddenly snatch them away, the situation would become extremely troublesome. Seeing the third Raikage's reaction, Kei inwardly felt some regret. He really had wanted to move just now and take the remaining Six Paths tools for himself. Even if they were not particularly useful to him, having them in his hands for a while just to study them would have been worthwhile. Unfortunately, the third Raikage had been far too vigilant and left him no opening at all. If you don't want to wait for the next update, read 10 to 50 chapters ahead on p@Trian. p@trian.com/fanficlord03. One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, Soul Land, NBA, and more, all in one place. Chapter 90, Negotiations and Invitations. 1792 words. Chapter 90, Negotiations and Invitations. Where is Kinkaku's corpse? The third Raikage stared at Minamikawa for a long moment before suddenly speaking. Hand him over. On what grounds? Kei's expression remained calm. He seems to be my spoil of war. Kinkaku is a rogue shinobi of Kumogakure. Naturally, Kumogakure should be the one to deal with him. The third Raikage spoke as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. Furthermore, the Bashozen and the amber purifying pot on his person are also property of Kumogakure. By all rights and reason, Konoha should return them. And if I refuse? Kei replied indifferently. What does the Raikage intend to do then? Then we go to war again. The third Raikage was blunt. With Konoha in its current state, I wonder if you can withstand another great war. The same goes for you. Yu's expression did not change. Konoha is not in a good place, but Kumogakure is not much better. The Great Ninja War had only just ended, and every major force was exhausted. Konoha had indeed suffered heavy losses and needed time to recover and rebuild. But Kumogakure was in exactly the same situation. After all, they had just lost the second Raikage and gone through the rebellion of the Kinkaku brothers. Not counting the losses among ordinary shinobi, Kumogakure alone had already lost 3 top-class powerhouses, the second Raikage and the 2 Kinkaku brothers. If Konoha could be called weak right now, then Kumogakure was likewise in a period of extreme weakness. Your people rebelled, and we came to help you suppress the rebellion. Now that it's over, you want to turn on us immediately. Hamura and the others arrived and spoke in rebuke. Is this how Kumogakure treats its guests? Guests are treated with hospitality. The third Raikage was completely unceremonious. I do not see you as guests. I see you as bandits. With Kumogakure's conduct, it's hard to say who the real bandits are. Danzo spoke coldly. You are quite famously barbaric in the shinobi world. What did you say? Exactly what I said. Danzo's tone did not change. There is one more thing. Since the Kinkaku brothers' rebellion has been suppressed, where is our second Hokage's corpse? Hamura and the others also spoke up. That's right. Hand over Lord Tobirama's body. When the Kinkaku brothers rebelled, Tobirama had died while covering their retreat, so naturally his body had fallen into their hands. Now that the rebellion had been put down, Tobirama's corpse was nowhere to be seen. Clearly, it had ended up in Kumogakure's possession. Return the 2 six-paths tools, the Bashozen and the amber purifying pot, along with Kinkaku's corpse, and I will return Senju Tobirama's corpse to you. The third Raikage's attitude was extremely tough. Impossible. Before Kei could say anything, Hamura and the others rejected it outright. Kinkaku's corpse was one matter, but the value of the Bashozen and the amber purifying pot was simply too great. Now that they were in Konoha's hands, there was no way they would hand them over. Especially the Bashozen. Just moments ago, they had personally witnessed its power. In Kinkaku's hands, its might was no different from a tailed beast ball. That kind of force might not be very effective against speed monsters like Kei or the third Raikage, but on a battlefield, it was unquestionably devastating. This was a ninja tool of real strategic value, capable of unleashing power comparable to a tailed beast ball with ease. No one would give that up lightly. We are willing to exchange Kinkaku's corpse for Lord Tobirama's corpse. Koharu finally spoke. What does the Raikage think? No. The third Raikage's stance remained forceful. The 6 paths tools are property of Kumogakure and must be returned. The atmosphere immediately reached a deadlock. Neither side was willing to retreat, and both possessed things the other side was absolutely determined to recover. Whether it was the 6 paths tools, the corpses of the Kinkaku brothers, or Tobirama's body, all of them were immensely valuable. The corpse of a powerful shinobi was a treasure trove in itself. If it fell into enemy hands, too many secrets could be studied from it, and one might even uncover the ninjutsu they had used during life. For top-tier shinobi like the Kinkaku brothers and Tobirama, their corpses were naturally of extraordinary value. Especially Tobirama's. For Konoha, as the second Hokage, his body had to be brought back for burial. Otherwise, it would be a severe blow to Konoha's prestige. And for students like Hamura and Kagami, bringing their teacher home for burial was also a personal wish. Since each side held what the other desperately wanted, negotiations became unavoidable. And unsurprisingly, the first round of talks was extremely unpleasant. Both sides were stuck, neither willing to yield. Lord Raikage. At last, Kei spoke. If this drags on any longer, I'm afraid the tailed beast seal may become unstable. Meeting the gazes of everyone present, he smiled faintly. The amber purifying pot likely carries a rather special significance for Kumogakure. It would be quite a pity if it were lost forever. The moment those words fell, everyone from Kumogakure, including the third Raikage, changed expression. In Danzo and the others' eyes, among the 6 paths tools wielded by the Kinkaku brothers, the Bashozen was naturally the most precious because of its battlefield value. But in reality, to Kumogakure, the most important item was the one they had overlooked. The amber purifying pot. Because that tool was needed to seal their tailed beast. Among the 5 great nations, only Konoha, thanks to its close relationship with the Uzumaki clan, possessed a complete sealing inheritance. The sealing techniques of the other 4 nations were mostly mediocre. The Sand Village's sealing of Shikaku was famously poor, and successive Jinchuriki had suffered because of it. Kumogakure was somewhat better than that, but not by much. Their advantage lay in external tools. The amber purifying pot, as a 6 paths tool, possessed formidable sealing power, and if used correctly, it could also strongly suppress a tailed beast. Kumogakure had long relied on this treasure in handling the 8 tails. For them, they could lose other things, but not the tool used for sealing their tailed beast. You actually know that. The third Raikage stood up abruptly, astonishment flashing in his eyes as he looked at Kei. There are no secrets in this world that remain hidden forever. Kei answered softly. As long as someone is willing to investigate, many things can be discovered, can't they? Lord Raikage, I think we can finally have a proper talk. Humph. The third Reikage snorted coldly and smashed the wooden table in front of him with one hand. But in the end, he did not continue opposing the discussion, which was itself a tacit acceptance of Kei's words. Thus, the next round of negotiations began. Compared to before, this time the discussion went much more smoothly. Both sides now understood the other's true objective and bottom line, so the pace advanced far faster. Soon, they reached a basic consensus. Kumogakure could forgo the Bashozen, but the amber purifying pot absolutely had to be returned. Even then, however, the specific details remained disputed. Senju Tobirama's corpse is one thing, but Ginkaku was a shinobi of Kumogakure. His corpse contains our village's secrets. Why should it be handed to you as well? The Kumogakure side pressed the question. And given the value of the amber purifying pot's tailed beast's sealing ability, do you think one corpse alone is enough? The Konoha side had their own answer. As for Ginkaku, yes, he was a Kumogakure shinobi, but he also carried the Nine Tails chakra. The Nine Tails belongs to Konoha. That power cannot be allowed to fall into the hands of outsiders. If you want the amber purifying pot back, then both Lord Tobirama's corpse and Ginkaku's corpse must be handed over to us. The two sides argued over the details for a long time before finally reaching a final agreement. Konoha would return the amber purifying pot. Kumogakure would hand over the corpses of Tobirama and Ginkaku to Konoha. Of course, as corresponding compensation, Konoha would also provide a certain sum of funds as part of the bargain. Once the agreement was reached, both sides let out a quiet breath of relief. Kei, should we make a move? Inside the Konoha camp, Danzo looked toward the Kumogakure camp in the distance, his face cold. If we strike now, while they are still off guard, our chances should be quite high. The amber purifying pot can seal tailed beasts. It is too important. If possible, we should find a way to take it back. As soon as he spoke, everyone else turned to look at Kei. There's no need. Meeting the gazes of the people around him, Kei shook his head. We just signed a ceasefire treaty. If we tear it up immediately afterward, how will others see us if word gets out? Moreover, we may not necessarily succeed. He looked into the distance, and the image of the third Reikage appeared in his mind. That man was absolutely not easy to deal with. Even for the current Kei, although he was confident he would not lose, fighting that opponent head-on would still be a great headache. And even if he could defeat him, seizing the amber purifying pot from the middle of the Kumogakure army would still be nearly impossible. Besides, although the tool was of tremendous importance to Kumogakure, it was not truly that critical to Konoha. After all, with Konoha's close relationship to the Uzumaki clan, their sealing inheritance was already more than sufficient. What was the result of the earlier invitation to the Uzumaki clan? He looked toward Homura and continued. Among the group, Homura was responsible for diplomacy. Whether it had been the negotiations with Kumogakure, or the earlier invitation to the Uzumaki clan, he was the one in charge. It was rejected. Under Kei's gaze, Homura shook his head and replied. They don't seem to have any intention of relocating to Konoha. Some time ago, Kei had already sent a message to the current Uzumaki clan head, inviting the clan to join Konoha and become part of the village. Now it seemed that invitation had been refused. But that was hardly surprising. The Uzumaki clan lived in isolation overseas, and lived well enough on its own. Why would they feel any need to join Konoha? If you don't want to wait for the next update, read 10 to 50 chapters ahead on P@Trian. p@trian.com/fanficlord03. One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, Soul Land, NBA, and more, all in one place. Chapter 91, The Uzumaki Clan's Problem. 1869 words. Chapter 91, The Uzumaki Clan's Problem. Is that so? Listening to Homura's report, Kei nodded, not particularly surprised. That isn't strange. After all, the Uzumaki clan was living perfectly well where it was. And now Konoha wanted them to uproot their entire clan, and move to Konoha with just a single invitation. How could that possibly be easy? One had to remember that the land of whirlpools was not merely their home. It was their sovereign nation. Living there, the Uzumaki clan possessed absolute autonomy. Why would they willingly run to Konoha? Unfortunately, if they continued clinging to that mindset, trouble was only a matter of time. The land of whirlpools lay isolated overseas. Although it was close to Konoha, there was still a certain distance between them. Its own overall strength was not especially great, and yet it possessed the strongest sealing techniques in the entire shinobi world. Members of the Uzumaki clan generally carried a bloodline trait of their own. Not only were they born with enormous chakra, but many also possessed tenacious life force, making them ideal material for becoming shinobi or even tailed beast Jinchuriki. Bloodline traits. Sealing techniques. Rare compatibility as tailed beast vessels. They possessed nearly everything the outside world found scarce and precious. And yet they remained isolated overseas, maintaining relations with no one other than Konoha. An existence like that was bound to attract covetous eyes. The original history was the clearest proof. If nothing changed, then in a few years the land of whirlpools would be destroyed, and the surviving clansmen would scatter across the shinobi world as refugees. That was likely how people like Nagato and Karen later came into being. In later generations, some claimed Konoha had played an ignoble role in that disaster, deliberately failing to send aid when the land of whirlpools was attacked, which ultimately led to its destruction. But after becoming Hokage, Kei felt that was unlikely. Setting aside the fact that Konoha and the land of whirlpools were allies, the value of those sealing techniques alone was enough to ensure Konoha could never casually give them up. One had to understand that throughout the entire shinobi world, because of people like Mito, Konoha was the only force capable of learning the Uzumaki clan's sealing arts. To put it plainly, that was a unique advantage Konoha possessed. That could also be seen in later generations. Compared to the seals used on the Jinchuriki of other villages, Naruto's seal, as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, was far more stable. Unless he encountered extreme danger, the Nine Tails within him did not seriously affect him at all. The Jinchuriki of other villages were nowhere near so fortunate. Kumogakure was slightly better off. Their sealing techniques were not strong enough on their own, but they at least had the amber purifying pot, one of the 6 paths tools, to compensate, so no major catastrophe occurred. Even so, the 8 Tails Jinchuriki had rampaged more than once before things finally stabilized with Killer Bee. The Sand Village was far worse. To seal Shikaku, several generations of Jinchuriki had suffered miserably. The last one-tailed Jinchuriki, Gaara, had even been pushed half into madness, only recovering later after being pulled back by Naruto's Talk no Jutsu. The difference was enormous. From that alone, one could see just how powerful and stable the Uzumaki clan's sealing arts were. Under such circumstances, what benefit would Konoha gain if the Uzumaki clan were wiped out and its sealing techniques were plundered by enemy villages? At the same time, however, it was also indisputable that Konoha had not provided large-scale assistance when the land of whirlpools was attacked. But after becoming Hokage and giving the matter some thought, Kei had already formed a rough idea of why. The land of whirlpools is isolated overseas. In the conference room, Kei pointed at the map and spoke calmly. Although it is close to the land of fire, there is still a considerable distance between it and Konoha. Once something happens there, it will be very difficult for us to reinforce them in time. Would it really be that serious? Hearing Kei's explanation, those present looked uncertain. The land of whirlpools is not weak. Even if something happens, shouldn't they be able to hold out until our reinforcements arrive? The Uzumaki clan, which possessed a powerful bloodline and world-renowned sealing techniques, could not be called weak by any means. In their view, even if a surprise attack happened, the Uzumaki clan should still be able to hold for several days until Konoha arrived. That would be true under normal circumstances. Kei's voice remained level. But what if the force making the move is Kumogakure? Kumogakure? The moment those words were spoken, everyone present went still. It is no secret that Kumogakure likes to seize bloodline traits and secret techniques from others. Kei spoke softly. In that regard, the Uzumaki clan's bloodline and sealing techniques are famous throughout the world. Would Kumogakure really not be tempted? There are tailed beast vessels here, superior sealing techniques, and the Uzumaki bloodline itself. With Kumogakure's nature, would they really refrain from striking? Hearing this, the expressions around the room turned solemn. They had to admit that what Kei said was entirely plausible. After all, Kumogakure had a long history in that regard. To some extent, that village was little different from a den of bandits. Relying on their military strength, many of the secret techniques and bloodline traits they possessed had been taken from outside sources. Their reputation in this area was terrible. For example, in the future, they would take advantage of Hyuga Hinata's birthday in an attempt to kidnap her and seize the Byakugan. That was Kumogakure. The attempt to kidnap Kushina Uzumaki while she was still young in order to seize the Uzumaki bloodline and sealing arts. That was also Kumogakure. Even the Sand Village's distinctive magnet release had its shadow in some Kumogakure shinobi. And while the theft of secret techniques was less obvious, Konoha had the sword art dance of the crescent moon, while Kumogakure later possessed cloud-style crescent moon slash. It was hard to believe that was mere coincidence. At the Five Kage summit in later years, even Inoki had openly complained about Kumogakure's habit of plundering every bloodline and technique they could get their hands on. With so many prior offenses, it was impossible to assume they would not set their sights on the Uzumaki clan. And considering both geography and opportunity, besides Konoha, the force most capable of striking the Uzumaki clan was indeed Kumogakure. Surely it wouldn't really go that far. Kagami was stunned, sounding uncertain. We only just signed a ceasefire agreement, and the third Reikage only just took office. Would he really want to go to war with us again so soon? The Uzumaki clan and Konoha were allies. If Kumogakure attacked the land of whirlpools, that would be equivalent to openly provoking Konoha. And the ceasefire between Konoha and Kumogakure had only just been established. Not right now, perhaps. Kei shook his head. But in the future? That is much harder to say. As for the ceasefire agreement, that thing is no more than a scrap of paper. If I were the Reikage, then once I made up my mind to move against the Uzumaki clan, I would act with extreme caution. I would wait until Konoha relaxed for a moment, then directly lead a large force to strike the land of whirlpools, destroy the country before Konoha could react, seize everything worth taking, and retreat immediately. Even if Konoha stays wary, as long as Kumogakure is patient, they will eventually find an opportunity. By the time the land of whirlpools is truly destroyed, Konoha may have only just begun to react. And then what? Would Konoha go to war with Kumogakure all over again for the sake of a nation that had already been destroyed? Hearing those words, everyone present frowned. It was indeed a thorny problem. Given Kumogakure's style, they would not be restrained by fear of war. If they truly waited until the land of whirlpools was destroyed and their objective achieved, then even if Konoha was unwilling, it could only swallow the loss. And the most troublesome point was that there did not seem to be any easy solution. After all, one can guard against a thief for a day, but not for 1,000. Kumogakure could keep its eyes on the land of whirlpools indefinitely, waiting for Konoha to slip once. But Konoha could not remain vigilant every single moment. From Konoha to the land of whirlpools, if we mobilized a shinobi army, it would take at least 5 days at the fastest. Hamura frowned while studying the map. 5 days. If Kumogakure truly struck, then by the time we arrived, the land of whirlpools might already be gone. What if we station troops there directly? Danzo suddenly offered a suggestion. Place Konoha forces permanently inside the land of whirlpools. That way we can protect them in advance. No. The objection came immediately. The land of whirlpools is only our ally, not our subordinate. We have no justification to station troops there. And even if we did, who would bear the cost of that garrison? If the burden falls on the land of whirlpools, it may only provoke dissatisfaction within the Uzumaki clan. That was the real problem. The Uzumaki clan and Konoha were not bound as ruler and vassal. They were merely allies. If Konoha suddenly insisted on stationing troops inside the land of whirlpools, how would the Uzumaki clan feel about it? It would be a clear loss of sovereignty. The land of whirlpools would never agree. At that point, everyone in the room realized just how troublesome the problem truly was. From a strategic perspective, the land of whirlpools had to be protected. But because of the distance involved, if something really happened, Konoha would never be able to arrive in time. The issue seemed almost unsolvable. This won't work and that won't work. Danzo frowned, then spoke coldly. If none of these solutions work, then let us strike first. In any case, the secret techniques of the Uzumaki clan must not fall into the hands of any other village. Strike first. Hamura looked toward him. What do you mean? Exactly what I mean. Danzo's voice was calm. We strike first, wipe out the Uzumaki clan before anyone else can, and take control of all their sealing techniques and bloodline traits ourselves. That way, there will be no hidden danger. You really dare say it? Hearing Danzo's words, everyone in the room fell silent. They looked at him and, at that moment, found him utterly unfamiliar. No matter what, the Uzumaki clan and Konoha were allies. They had been discussing how to save the Uzumaki clan in the future. But Danzo had simply cut through the matter with a chilling bluntness. If Konoha destroyed the Uzumaki clan first, then no one else would be able to destroy them later. If you don't want to wait for the next update, read 10 to 50 chapters ahead on P@Trian. p@trian.com/fanficlord03. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.